people in this country are arguing that the law is cracking down way too hard on teenagers. All around the country, lawmakers have been making our teenagers accountable for their actions, sometimes with some rather unusual and even severe punishments. 16-year-old Rolonda complains that she is currently the victim of one of those kind of laws. A 1921 law in Idaho that bans sex without marriage. A law that Rolonda and her 19-year-old boyfriend broke. Well, the cops threw him in jail and threw Rolonda's life into a tailspin.
My name is Rolonda and I live in Emmett, Idaho. I'm 16 years old, and this is the house I live in with my father and my baby. His name is Heath, and he's 5 months old. My mother died last year, and I miss her very much. My boyfriend John, who is my fiance, is now in the Jim County Jail where he's been for the last 2 months. He was arrested for having sex with me. I visit him every Wednesday and Sunday, according to the rules of the jail. I miss him very much and can hardly wait for us to get married. This is my dog Sergeant, who I try to play with when I can. And here's John's father Gary and his stepmother Lydia, who love Heath very much. I can't believe what's happening to us. They might as well put a big wall up around Emmett. This town is so messed up.
Rolonda, take us back. How did all of this happen? What led up to the arrest?
Well, basically it first started when, after me and John had been dating for about a month, I got pregnant and I tried to keep it as quiet as I could for as long as I could. But my brother found out and he went to John's house and had threatened him, so John had called the cops because he didn't want the trouble that he knew was coming. Later that night, it ended up that John was the one thrown in jail instead of my brother because he'd had sex with me.
So the officers found out about it, and under this 1921 law, threw John in jail.
Yeah.
What are you thinking about this? What's your...
It's really unfair, the fact that me and John really want to get married. My father has given us permission. I have permission from a judge to get married to John, but the probation that he is on now refuses to let it happen because they see me as a victim. Mm-hmm. And it has been so stressful trying to raise the baby by myself without John able to be here.
Mm-hmm. You turned 16 since the arrest, mm-hmm. and I understand that the day that you turned 16, it wasn't a sweet 16.
No, it really wasn't. Most of the day I was just worried about how John was feeling since he couldn't be there, and how bad it was to have a birthday that's supposed to be so nice for everybody, but it really wasn't all that fun. Mm-hmm.
We have John on the telephone, who is joining us from the Jim County Jail in Idaho, where he has spent the last 2 months. John was denied parole and is soon to face sentencing. John, can you hear me? Are you there?
Yes.
John, this has got to be a tough ordeal for you. What are you going through behind bars there?
It's hard to explain. It's pure, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Do you think this was fair to do? You know that there's a law in the books that says that you can't have sex before marriage. I mean, could you understand why they booked you?
I can understand why, but I don't think it's fair.
Why do you think they're still holding you?
To make an example of me.
What kind of example are they trying to set, you think, in your hometown? Because it almost makes you wonder if the teenagers there are running around scared.
I think they're trying to set an example, trying to do a campaign to stop teenage pregnancy, which I don't think is going to do no good anyway.
Why not?
Because anymore, the way teenagers think, if somebody tells them they can't do something, they're going to do it anyway just to rebel.
Mm. What would you say to other people who might be watching the show from your hometown? What do you say to them, Rolonda?
Basically, I'd tell them to keep it low and keep it quiet, or try to move out of the town, or else they'll end up with John sitting in the Jim County Jail.
Do you think that your situation will set an example for other teenagers? Do you believe that by keeping John in jail, that the other teenagers are going to say, boy, I'm not going to have sex before marriage. Look at what happened to Rolonda and John.
No, I really don't think it will. It's going to cause them to do it more, like John said, so they can rebel. It's like, teenagers aren't supposed to smoke, they do it anyway. They're not supposed to drink, they do it anyway. now, you know, they're not supposed to have sex, they're going to do it anyway.
John, I heard some folks laughing there.
Yeah.
I gotta ask you, are the folks in that jail laughing at you for what you got in trouble for?
Oh, no, I'm not the only one in here like that.
You mean there are other people under the same law who are in jail?
Yep.
And what do you guys talk about behind bars there?
Just how ridiculous it is, about what can be done about it.
John, let me ask you this. You're going to now have a record as a sex offender because you're in under plea bargaining under statutory rape charges.
Yeah.
Which means that when you get out of jail and you want to go play with your baby Heath, you have to notify the state that you're a sex offender, which means you can't go to parks, you can't go to circuses, you can't be around children. What is that going to do to you?
It's going to tear me apart because it's going to make me feel like I can't be a real father to my son because I can't do the things with him that other fathers can.
Coming up, what does Rhonda's father think about his 16-year-old daughter breaking the law and getting pregnant? And what about John's parents? We're going to find out what steps they're taking in hopes of getting their son out of jail right after this.
Hey, don't forget to like when you like, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you'll be the first to know when the next video is uploaded.
Welcome back, everybody. If you're just joining us, we're talking today about how the law is really cracking down on teenagers all throughout the country. An incredible story we've been hearing out of Idaho. We just met 16-year-old Rolonda. She argues that the authorities in her hometown of Emmett, Idaho, were simply unfair when they threw her 19-year-old boyfriend in jail. What was the offense? Sex without marriage, a 1921 law still on the books and obviously still being enforced. Joining us now are John's father, Gary, and his stepmother, Lydia Mulligan, and also Rhonda's dad, Ron Bushong, is joining us as well. I've got to ask you, as parents, when you first heard the news that John was in jail, the baby was coming, I can imagine your families went into quite a bit of crisis there. What was your first reaction?
Well, I took John to jail to start off with. I took him down to the police station when all this originally started happening. He wanted to go down and talk to an investigator.
You took him down there when he got in trouble?
Well, the deal was when Ron's big brother showed up to whoop him because his sister was pregnant.
Right.
The law was called, and the law stepped in and wanted to talk to John. I said, John, the best thing for you to do is go down and talk to him. I took him down to the police station, and we went and talked to this investigator. The investigator let me in the little room there where he talked to him, and started asking John. He said, "Would you have sex with Rhonda?" John says, "Yes, she's carrying my kid, and we're planning on being married." And then this investigator come up and started saying stuff like, 10, 15, 20 times? I said, "John, just shut up and let's get a lawyer." And then that's when he told John to stand up, put the cuffs on him, and took him to jail.
Unbelievable. When that happened, what was your first reaction? What did you think as a dad whose son just got carted off to jail?
I wanted to hit him right between the eyeballs. Because I know the investigator. I went to school with him.
Oh. Now, this isn't a personal vendetta or anything, is it?
No, really.
Not really. This could happen to anybody.
Because I know him too well.
What about you, Ron? What was your first reaction?
Well, when I first heard about it, I was at the cemetery visiting my wife's grave. And probably like most parents, first thought is you want to wring somebody's neck. And let me say that in the last year or so, I've grown up quite a bit, even though I was 50 years old or older when it started. And the thing I found out that the things you believe in all your life, like truth, justice, right, wrong, you get to be almost 53 years old and you find out that the truth doesn't mean anything. Right now, everybody's focusing on a fornication law of 1921. That's not the problem. It's a byproduct. The problem goes a lot deeper than any fornication law.
What do you think the problem is?
The problem is everybody wants to impose their own thoughts. We have laws that were established years ago. We stood as a people, and we enforced those laws, we backed those laws. But now, people don't enforce the laws, they don't back the laws. They're wanting to pick and choose the laws they want to enforce They want to pick and choose the people they want to prosecute. And if they want to pick you today to make an example out of, well, this is your day. But if tomorrow, the gentleman sitting back there, then it's his day. And it doesn't matter whether you're innocent or guilty. If they want to make him an example today, that's who they're going to make an example.
So you're saying this is unfair. They're making your daughter and her love an example.
I'm saying it's not right to take one wrong and try to correct it by doing another wrong.
And let me point out while we're having this discussion, folks, this doesn't just pertain to teenagers. That means that anybody, you're 35 years old and you've got a boyfriend and y'all start sleeping together, you could go to jail. That's the way it stands, not just teenagers. Yes, sir, Sina.
Well, I mean, I think the real problem is unprotected sex and not all this, trouble with the law.
You know, if they really wanted to enforce it, they would have sex education in the schools in Emmett, but they don't even cover any of that in the high school or even the middle school or any other place in Emmett.
I want you to meet Dennis Mansfield. Come on, Dennis, stand up and join us here. Dennis is the executive director of the Idaho Family Forum. And do you think this law is unfair?
I think in Rhonda's case with John, there's a little bit more to it. The old Jewish proverb that says you hear one person's story, it sounds good until you hear another. But John's situation is that he's facing two of those. And when he went into jail, his situation was that he was not because he got her pregnant. It was because he broke probation and he didn't follow through on what the prosecuting attorney told him to do.
Rhonda's father.
See, that's something that now you only know what you've been told. You haven't taken the time to find out what the real issue is.
Yeah, I think that sounds good, except that the prosecuting attorney in this case is someone that has had to deal with this issue over and over again.
That's right,
I talked
and
to him
he's
a half hour
therefore
before the
promoted
show,
himself
and the
to put
bottom line
himself in a
was
position of
that
God.
John was irresponsible not only once, but maybe twice or maybe other times.
How about all the other damn people
Our call is that not only is it responsible to honor Rhonda, to honor the baby, to honor what they're doing, but it's also to say, look, if you're 19 and 20 years old and you're messing around with a 15-year-old, somebody's got to be responsible for that. It's either going to be him or these folks.
I want to find out what some folks in the audience and I see there are a lot of questions. I mean, we tried to talk to the prosecuting attorney in this case to try to get another side, but he did not return our calls, refused to return our calls. But I'd like to ask all of y'all, if you were parents or you were a kid in this situation, what would you do? We're going to pick up your questions as soon as we come back. Also up next, two parents forced by the law, now get this, to be chained to their daughter. They are fighting back, arguing that the law is abusive. We're going to see what you think right after this. Laws cracking down. Are they looking for love in all the wrong places?
They are my friends and they are her friends.
None of my kids are writing letters to murderers.
Friends with a killer, next Rolonda. Questions during the break. I think a real heated debate is about to start here as we're talking to parents and teenagers who say that the law has been cracking down on them in some cruel and unusual ways. John is still joining us, 19 years old, from the Jim County Jail in Idaho, where he was thrown into jail after he plea bargained for statutory rape because he got his girlfriend pregnant. It goes back to a 1921 law that says anybody not married gets in trouble if they have sex. John, Mr. Mansfield here from the Family Forum says, well, he calls you irresponsible. He says that's why you're paying your dues there in jail, because you're not responsible. What is your response to him?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, how can somebody be responsible if they're sitting here in jail? It's kind of hard now, isn't it? I mean, when I was on the out, I was working, paying for my kids.
Yeah. Exactly.
I was working, trying to help support my kid and everything else, and now they stuck me in jail. How can I be responsible? It's hard to be responsible sitting in here.
Mansfield, somebody said during the commercial, the lady over there said, she said, you know what this law is doing? It's breaking up a family.
Yeah.
These kids want to get married. They want to do the right thing. So where does the law help that?
Rolonda, one of the things we're trying to work on right now is not John being responsible in jail, but helping men and women, boys and girls, be responsible before they get into jail. That's why we connected with Promise Keepers, with so many of the groups that are saying, men, take charge before you end up going into jail for whatever reason. This happens to be the statutory 1921 law that we ought to go back and revisit. But it really comes back to the key issue of responsibility.
What do you say?
I really believe that law is on the books to protect these underage people having sex. Why don't everybody, why don't they amend the law and have the parents and the couple get together and sign a nice paper saying that they're willing to support this action and support the child if it's born? Wouldn't that be a fair thing to do?
Yeah, it would.
But it's not the law. This fornication law is not the issue of what's really going on. If you want to get into it and find out facts like Mr. Mansfield, he said there's other issues, and there really is. It's not a question of whether what they did was wrong. I think if you'll talk to John and you'll talk to Rhonda, they'll admit what they did was wrong. But does one wrong justify another wrong? And if we're going to help the people in the future, do we wait and help someone down the road, as Mr. Mansfield suggested? Or do we start helping the people that are involved in it right now? Because these are real people, they're real lives.
But I still feel that the family should back them before problems happen. Maybe they should come to you and say, we're going to have sex. Dad, what can we do?
Now, I mean, but while that makes a point, let's ask Dad. If they had come to you and sat down and said, Dad, this is what we want to do, what would you dads have said to them?
I got slapped across
This
the
dad-
mouth, probably.
This dad believes there's a time and place for everything, you know, and when you're a teenager like they were, it's wrong. But the thing of it is, they admit it's wrong. So because you want to make an example out of them, do you go out and as an authority figure, as a prosecutor, as a judge, do you say, well, hey, we're going to take these people and make an example out of them. We don't care what happens to them, but if it stops one other teen, one other pregnancy, then it's all worth it.
Do you think it's worked? Do you think it has scared some other teenagers?
Well, I'll tell you what has helped on the drug laws in the last 25 years? Have they gotten better?
Rhonda, what about you? You're out there talking to teenagers. You're 16 years old. What are teenagers saying about your case?
They think it's really bad that the fact, you know, we are trying to get married and everything. They think it's really wrong that we're not allowed to. I can understand certain laws like this for teenage fathers that run out on a child. But in this case, John is trying.
Now, let's get a load of this one. Deborah and Richard Harder are from Summerville, South Carolina. They say that their ordeal began last January. They were forced to be shackled to their 15-year-old daughter, Tanya, after she was found guilty of truancy, shoplifting, and burglary. These parents took this drastic measure just to keep their 15-year-old daughter out of juvenile detention center. That is quite a drastic measure to take. Shackled to your 15-year-old daughter, that must have been quite an experience. What did you guys go through?
My wife was the first one shackled, and she was shackled.
You know, we don't mean to laugh at your case, but I think everybody's like, we can't believe it.
Yeah, we couldn't believe it ourselves. It basically came down to a choice. When she was in the detention center, every week, once a week, we'd have to go to the courthouse for a detention hearing since she's a juvenile. And we went up there December 7th, and my wife told the judge basically, you know, she's been in this detention center for 2 months. She's not getting any counseling or anything. You know, you can let her come home. You know, I'll go to school with her. You know, I'll sleep in her room with her. I'll do this, I'll do that. And, you know, I'll be her shadow 24 hours a day, you know, just to keep Tanya from going back to the detention center. So the judge says, well, basically, Mrs. Harder, that is what you are going to do.
And what did you go through being chained to your daughter like that, Deborah?
It was hell. Pure hell. I had to go to school with her, ride the school bus. When she was in the shower, I had to stand outside.
No.
I had to sleep with her.
Yeah, we had to move a couch into Tanya's room so that Tanya could sleep on the bed and my wife would sleep on the couch next to Tanya's bed.
Now, there are a lot of people listening to this story who might say, well, I sure hope when you were shackled to your daughter standing outside the shower that you talked to her about burglary, you talked to her about shoplifting, you talked to her about truancy. Did you have, what kind of conversations, mother-daughter conversations did you have?
I told her she knew she was wrong. She admitted she was wrong. She pleaded guilty in court. And she said that she wouldn't do it no more. I believed in her, and I still believe in her.
Do you think it's fair?
Not to me. It wasn't fair. You know, I'm just trying to help my daughter. I was just there to help her.
And see, we weren't told all the conditions of that court order that day, so my
You
wife...
had no idea what life was going to be like being shackled to your daughter.
No, because the judge included in the court order that we weren't allowed, well, my wife at the time wasn't allowed to smoke around Tanya, and no drinking, you know, and nothing like that.
So it sounds like Mom was being punished too.
Yeah, but you see, he didn't tell that to us.
Well, y'all, we're going to take you there. Let's take a look right now at some of the things that Tanya has said about her ordeal. Let's take a look at what they had to go through.
I couldn't straighten out by myself. I am going to school and I am behaving, and this probably does have part in, you know, me behaving.
Are you feeling nervous?
Yeah.
You know, Deborah, I was watching you during that tape, and you just did like this. What were you thinking?
I just want it all to end. I want her out of prison. I just want to put it all behind us. I think she deserves a second chance. She's in prison right now, juvenile. She went out in front of the parole board August 6th. She was denied. They said no action, undecided. She was a model prisoner. She's never been on probation. I think she deserves a second chance, and I believe in her.
Well, the county coroner from Moncks Corner, South Carolina, says if it takes chaining a parent to their child to shock the public, then so be it. We've got some tough talk on this situation when we come back. What is the color of love?
We love black men.
But if you're a black woman, there's just one problem.
There's a shortage.
Where are all the good black men? Wednesday on Rolonda. Deborah and Richard Harder say that when the South Carolina authorities forced them to be shackled to their own daughter, it was cruel, it was unusual, they say, and it was certainly unfair. But Wade Arnett over here, the county coroner from Moncks Corner, South Carolina, well, I'm going to let you say what you're going to say, because you argue that Rhonda and John shouldn't have broken the law in the first place.
Thank you, Rolonda. And I can assure you, Mr. and Ms. Harder, we all shared this with you at that time. The whole community felt sorry for you. But as I told you before, if this is what it takes to turn some teenagers around and get their lives straightened back out, then I'm for that. As I recall, this was an alternative to her going back to the detention center, and you selected that. Now, I'm not speaking for the judge down in South Carolina. You came by my office each and every day that you came up there, and I certainly felt sorry for you as parents, that what you were having to go through at that time, and no one certainly enjoyed what you were doing and having to do at that time. Really, when you got so sick, I remember that so well. Mr. Harder had to step in. We felt for you at that time. But ladies and gentlemen, I've seen a lot of teenagers, and this is one thing in South Carolina, in Berkeley County, that we are doing is trying to turn some teenagers around. I'm talking to schools and groups and all like that, and some of the things have been said here today. Frankly, I'd like to see teenagers enjoy the teenage role till they become adults, and then assume that. I'm not criticizing this young lady from up there, but I don't like to see babies having babies, and because it's going to just be a hardship on them, but I'm not criticizing you enough for this. One thing that I'm working hard in South Carolina, along with so many other people around it, is drugs.
Do you think that's the reason we have so many
drugs
problems?
a lot of times are completely out of control. Not only in South Carolina,
I hear you getting
right
some
here,
support over here.
right here in New York.
Yeah. Deborah, what are you saying? What's your reaction to what Wade has just said?
Beg your pardon?
What is your reaction to what has just been said here?
Well, you know, he said he felt sorry for us because, you know, we were tethered, but Tanya spent 2 months in a detention center, 2.5 months tethered to me or my husband. Now, she's been in juvenile prison 7 months. When is it all going to stop? When are they going to let that child come home and get on with her life?
When are they going to let her out?
I don't know. I don't know that.
She
Ms.
is a
Harder.
model prisoner. We went in front of the parole board August the 6th. She had recommendations from social workers, teachers, everything. They refused to let her go.
Question.
I'd just like to say, I mean, parents in this country are supposed to be responsible for their children until they're 18. I mean, where were you while this was all going on?
Truancy, shoplifting, burglary.
Do you think you should watch a teenager at 15 years, try it.
It's, you know, they're saying, yeah, you're responsible for your kids, but how do you keep an eye on someone 24 hours a day? I mean, I'm not going to go to the store every time my daughter goes to the store. I'm not going to know every time she goes to the store.
You know something, I didn't have these kind of laws when I was growing up in North Carolina. But I had a mother in my house who believed if you spare the rod, you spoil the child. She was into tough discipline. I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm just going to tell you my experience. My mother put the fear in me that I would think that if I got in trouble, I would pray the cops got there before my mother. And that kept me on the right road. So I guess what I'm saying is that even though my mother didn't watch me every single second, I knew within myself, because of her teachings, not to do things like shoplift, burglarize, and skip school.
Well, my wife wasn't spoiling the rod when she did 6.5 hours in jail for criminal domestic violence. And my wife was the one that called the police because our daughter was out of control. My daughter hit my wife hit my daughter back, and my wife went to jail.
And the same authorities right now that are saying you're responsible are the same people as to him. You're supposed to be responsible for your children. What do you do when you think your child deserves a spanking? You give that child a spanking, and the health and welfare says, if you touch her again, I'm going to throw you in jail. Now, you're handcuffed with being responsible for her, but I'll tell you what. How do you get the handcuffs off to do what you're speaking of doing?
What do you say, sir?
Need the law to step
Just
our
like my
way.
parents that grew up in Florence, South Carolina. And if I had did something wrong as a child, they wouldn't have no area of whipping my butt. And if my neighbors saw me something doing something wrong,
that's right.
My neighbors would even whip my butt and tell my parents.
That's
and
right.
when I got back
That's
home,
right.
I did it back
That's
quickly.
right. Honey, don't you know? Now listen, we're from the Kakalakis. They mean business. Because I remember I'd get in trouble and somebody would raise the window and say, I'm going to tell your mama. And you walk across the front yards all the way home. And they say, I'm going to tell your mama. I'm going to tell your mama. You shouldn't have done that. Everybody in the community took responsibility for every child. And yes, it takes an entire village. It does take a family. But y'all, families need help these days. It takes a whole community. When we come back, you're going to meet a mother who was thrown into jail for 30 days for her daughter's crime. Should the law crack down on parents of troubled teenagers too? We're going to see what you think, get more comments, questions, a good debate when we come back.
I think that this is such a pathetic excuse for parenting from all of you, that the laws are the only thing that can keep you guys intact.
So, did you like that segment? If so, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Be sure to hit the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when my next video drops.
Now, if you're going to be in the New York area and would like free tickets to Rolonda, well, please call us at 212-650-2060. I was just talking to this gentleman, and he said, what do you call that law? Ancient history.
Ancient history, 1920s. This is the 90s.
You're right.
The city, the state, and the towns, whenever they want to change a law, they call a meeting. But to change the laws that are ancient history, forget about it. That stays on the books.
So you think those kids need to be left alone?
They made a mistake. They want to get married. Let them do it.
Yeah. Let me ask you, Mansfield. Thank you so much, sir. If they're saying they want to do the right thing, yeah, they made a mistake, but the baby's here now. They want to do the right thing. You've got two sets of parents who support that. Why don't you just let them out and make it right that way?
I think that's going to be the solution to it, and we hope that it is. We hope that they have a Christmas together, that things go well. But the real question comes back to the idea that when John has gone through what he has to go through, and he comes out of this having broken probation, having made some other things that are not available for us to discuss right now, those things need to be dealt with. The prosecuting attorney did not come after them. You got to realize this.
Oh, but yes, he did.
No, he didn't, because in Idaho law, Rolonda,
did.
in Idaho law, a prosecuting attorney cannot do that. A police officer has to be given a reason why he then or she then initiates it. Then the prosecuting attorney gets it. The brother and the father came through. That started it. That started it. Now remember that.
I thought we'd be human beings and go down and admit to his mistake. But what the hell they do? They put him in jail. We got too many people out here trying to run our damn business and don't let us raise our kids. You guys should butt the hell out.
What do you say? You're a teenager.
You've got all these law enforcement officers out here trying to run my damn life and my kid's life.
Yeah.
And I don't like it.
See,
we don't need you people.
Rolonda, one of the things, he brings up a good point. He brings up a real good point. It's called self-government before it becomes government. You have to govern yourself before the government. And if you don't do it, the government then gets in. That's called law.
I will admit that there are going to be some people watching this show. I'm going to tell you, there are going to be some people sitting at home on the couch nudging somebody going, now you know something. If you don't take care of your kids in your house, they become our kids in the community. Ripping off our houses. If you don't go to school, you're not going to have a job. So what are you going to do? What do you say, young man?
I don't mean any offense to Rhonda, but I'm just wondering why she isn't in jail. Why he's the only one getting punished.
No, I don't understand that either. I feel that if John's in jail, I should be there too. We both broke the law.
Question.
I'd really like to know who pressed charges.
The state of Idaho.
The state of Idaho.
The state of Idaho.
Charges.
Who gives the state permission to press charges when, if they're saying that your family should be involved, well then shouldn't your father be the one that says this is what was wrong and my daughter, I want to press charges, and if he doesn't, isn't it his business to decide and not his state's?
They asked if we wanted to press charges and we both told them no. And they said, well, that's too bad. We're going to do it anyway.
Do you know that there's another case right in our hometown where it was a 16, I believe, and a 17-year-old involved. The girl was the older one. 14. And do you know what our prosecutor says? And I've got his written statement in my hotel room right now. It'll tell you that technically they still could have charged the boy with rape.
I want you to
He
look
was
at...
a year younger than the girl.
I want you to meet this mom and her daughter. We're going to talk to this family in just a minute. Mom was thrown into jail for 30 days. You spent time in jail just because of what your daughter did. The question is, should the law be cracking down on parents of troubled teenagers too? We're going to hear your story and see what the audience thinks right after this.
What is the color of love?
We love black men.
But if you're a black woman, there's just one problem.
There's a shortage.
Where are all the good black men? Wednesday on Rolonda.
We've been talking today about how the law is cracking down on teens in some pretty harsh ways. I mean, not only are teenagers being punished in unusual ways, but so are parents in many cases. I was just talking to Penny and her daughter Jennifer here. They're visiting us from Hamilton, Ohio, and Penny was saying that she's very upset now because she has a record with the police department, or you have a record with the mother has a record with the police department. It was all because when you were 12 years old, you were skipping school. So what I understand is the police threw mom in jail because daughter wasn't going to school. What are you thinking about that?
Well, it was unfair. She was going to her aunt's to stay, and I was going to jail. And she was the one that missed school. But then again, we moved to Hamilton. Now we lived outside. We moved and enrolled her into the city schools, and she has a learning disability. And they switched her 4 times because they kept saying, well, she's in the wrong class. Well, we don't have enough room here. So she switched schools 4 times between September and December. And by that time, by December, she pretty much lost interest.
Do you know, as long as you live, one of your life stories is going to be, I sent my mom to jail. Yes. What do you, do you feel any guilt? What do you feel when you do something?
I just didn't know it really was going to happen.
You didn't believe it would happen?
Right.
Do you think it made you better? Do you think it made you more responsible? Do you think it's a good law to have?
No.
You don't? Why not?
Because the crime I'm doing, and my mom's getting in trouble for it instead of me.
Because you do have a record now. Has that caused you problems when you try to get a job or you try?
I'm on probation, and that's caused me problems because now it's like I'm a ward of the state. Anytime, if they want to come and I have to go up there and see them if there's something I'm not doing right, or they can put me in jail.
Let me ask y'all, do you think these laws we've been talking about, how many of you, and clap, how many of you think they're great laws? Do you need this all over America to get our teenagers together? How many? Just you? Come, and look, he's a young man. Come on, stand up. How old are you?
I'm 18.
18?
Yes.
You're the only one in the audience clapping. Go on. But go on. But I like that he's brave enough to stand by his conviction. So you go on. There you go. There you go. There you go. I got your back. But go and explain to us why you gave a hearty clap on that.
Well, you know, I'm not an adamant supporter of these laws. I wouldn't want my kids to suffer from them, but I think that this is such a pathetic excuse for parenting from all of you, that the laws are the only thing that can keep you guys intact.
Whoa. What do you say up here? You just got a, as the kids would say, you got a major diss.
If ignorance is bliss, he'd be a millionaire.
What are we going to do? Build jails all over the city of New York to put you kids in because you went out in the alley someplace?
Maybe they should build jails for you.
I don't think so. I've never been in jail.
How many of you think these laws are absolutely the most ridiculous things you've ever heard and should be thrown off? What do you say here?
I think that part of the problem is that we're not using common sense. I think that parents do need to be held accountable for the actions of their children, but they do not need to be having records. I mean, you know, if she is being held accountable for something that her 12-year-old did, she needs, first of all, parenting classes. You know, and second of all, she needs to not have a probation right now after she got finished doing time. I mean, that's not common sense, so there needs to be a balance.
You may have a lot in common with our next guest. Yeah. Because coming up next, we're going to meet a man who argues that the court needs to educate families, much of like what you're saying. He says, educate families, don't punish them. When we come back, we're also going to find out what you can do to help your troubled teen before you get in trouble yourself when we return. And that's something. Talking an awful lot during that commercial break, and an awful lot of people here in the studio audience were saying that yes, we do need to educate families a bit more on raising children that might keep them out. And then our next guest says, hey, you know, educate these parents, educate them, don't punish them, don't punish these families. This is Jeffrey Canada, everybody. He's from Manhattan. Jeffrey knows what he's talking about. He helps an awful lot of families in crisis. He's president of the Riedling Center for Families and Children. And go on, I'm going to let you say it in your own words. You've heard this whole show. You've heard parents and kids being thrown into jail. Folks trying to make a point.
You know, there's a real crisis in this country right now. People don't know what to do with children. And people have been looking around and saying, you know what we need to do with these kids? We have to get tough with them. We have to get tough with them. We have to get tough with their parents, and that's how we're going to straighten them all out. Well, it's simply not true. Young people face the most complicated times. When you look at what young people are facing in terms of the homicide rates, in terms of the teenage pregnancy rates, in terms of AIDS, which didn't exist when we were growing up, in terms of what's happening now with government being involved, all of us remember when our parents used to beat us. And if you were a kid like me, you got a beating. If you did something really bad, you got a whooping.
Whooping,
and that was like with whatever my mother could grab a hold of. And you don't having wealth on you didn't end up going into courts and things like that. When we began as a community to take those kinds of abilities from parents, rightly so, you can't abuse children to the point that you damage them. We didn't replace them with any skills that help parents know how to discipline kids, set limits, and at the same time make sure that those children were getting the kind of nurturing they needed to grow up and be adults.
I love what you just said. Absolutely. Yeah. Because you're right. We did come along and say, parents, you can't do this anymore, but nobody replaced with other coping mechanisms, other skills. The government is now walking in, like the gentleman over here said, stay out of my kid's life. This is my family. It doesn't belong to the government. What do you say?
Well, you know, I think that we have to recognize that we want too much from parents. We want all parents to work, and yet we want them to take care of their children. We want them to be responsible for their children, but they have to work 2 jobs in order to make a living. We want to make sure kids get an education, but we don't want to pay for the rebuilding of schools in this country.
Right.
You have to set priorities that make sense. If we want our children to grow up and really be raised in a healthy community, we have to make sure we support them. We have to make sure there are places for them to go after school. We have to make sure that parents get help. You know, the first help you get as a parent should not be from a police officer. Right? There should be someone that you can go to. And if you have a problem, really talk with, there are trained counselors, trained social workers that can help parents deal with young people We have a country right now that is becoming so hard on its kids that they see every answer as building more jails, more institutions, and not doing the kind of investing in children that we know really makes a difference.
So what should we do? You say to set up more programs like yours, more centers for families that deal with family crises and deal with these issues so they don't end up in jail.
And people sometimes think that what you're saying is that we don't have to hold parents responsible. We do. But we have to make sure we give them the tools to be held responsible. We have to hold children responsible. Children shouldn't be having sex and babies at 14 and 15 and 16. That's irresponsible. At the same time, if we never talk to children about birth control, if we never talk to children about what it really takes to be a parent, if they don't know that, then we can't hold them responsible. They are children, after all. And every child, I mean, I don't know about some of you, but I've made a few mistakes as a child. All right, you don't want to be thrown in jail because you make a mistake or two. So we have to do both things. We have to set limits. We have to make sure children really understand what they need to make it. But at the same time, we have to help parents, give them support to make sure there are places for parents to go when they need help that they can come to voluntarily, not because the court orders them to do so.
A lot of you sitting at home maybe watching this show and think that your teen may be being treated unfairly yourself by the law. If you think that, come on and write us. Let us know. We want to hear your voice too.
They are obsessed with serial killers.
Some even call them friends.
None of my kids are writing letters to murderers. My
That's
kids
your
are
opinion.
Go inside the mind of a murderer with someone who's come face to face.
The mask of charm is the most deadly disguise. That is how he lured in his victims.
Friends with a serial killer. Next, Rolonda.
I was just talking to some teenagers here, and they said, we still get spankings. I remember I was glad my mother didn't stutter, because she's like, didn't I tell you to not do that anymore? You know, but times have changed, and I agree so much about what you said, that we do have to find other ways to cope. A family in trouble, what can they do? After seeing the show,
You know what? Every family needs to call around in their community and find out what's available for children. And you just need to really do an inventory, because you shouldn't wait until your child's in trouble and know that there's help out there. We should connect our children to places right now. And you know what? If you call around and don't find a place, then we have to fight and make sure those places get built in our community, so there's always places for our children to go where help's available.
I love what you say. One thing here at the Rolonda Show we're real big on is not only families. We're going to take it up a step this season. Let's talk about communities pulling together to support our families. And maybe you need it in your community. We need some leaders out there that are going to start some organizations and start some centers to save our families and especially our precious kids. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Rolonda. Thank you.
Hey, don't forget to like when you like, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you'll be the first to know when the next video is uploaded.